Good morning and welcome to the NCFCA Online Summit. My name is Amy Joy Tofty, and it is my pleasure to serve as the Director of Education for NCFCA, the leading Christian speech and debate league that challenges students to communicate truth with integrity and grace. We are so grateful for technology, which allows us to gather together even though we are miles apart. So if you've downloaded the Zoom app onto your computer or phone, then you should see the option to change your view between the speaker and the gallery. So look toward the top of your screen to find that feature. Then at the bottom of your screen, click on the chat button to open the chat box on the right side of your screen. And you'll also notice an extra feature there that's a question and answer button where you can type in your questions throughout the session and we'll answer those after the teaching is over. If you need technical assistance, contact summittech@ncfca.org. So as we kick off our summit talking about speeches and finding our voice, I just wanted to share a little piece from Exodus chapter 3. So the setup here is that God had seen the suffering of his people at the hands of the Egyptians. And so he appeared to Moses in a burning bush, and he called him to be the voice for the people of Israel. But Moses was afraid. He didn't think he was qualified to speak on behalf of the Israelites. Then in Exodus chapter 4, verses 10 through 13, Moses responds, "Oh, my Lord, I am not eloquent, either in the past or since you've spoken to your servant, but I am slow of speech and tongue." Then the Lord said to him, "Who has made man's mouth? Who makes him mute or deaf or seeing or blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now therefore go, and I will be with your mouth and teach you what you shall speak." You know, thousands of years later, God is calling us to be a voice in this time and in this place. And he still reminds us that he will teach us what we are to speak. Today marks the beginning of an adventure when we seek to develop our communication skills so that God can use us to share a message of hope and to address real life issues in a manner that glorifies God. In session 1, Finding Your Voice, we'll learn some great strategies for discovering speech topics that impact both the speaker and the listener. Our guest speaker today is Mr. Zach Rosa. Zach is a Region 4 NCFCA alumnus who competed in 2 styles of debate and 10 speech events. He was a national champion in illustrated oratory, and he currently runs Caliber U, a system for personality-specific practical growth. Please welcome Zach Rosa.
Hello, everybody, and welcome again on behalf of NCFCA. I'm super excited to get this started. Before I dive in and go talking about how you come up with a topic that you're passionate about, I want to give 3 really brief things to keep in the back of your mind. The first thing is that as you go through this summit, especially when you watch the different instructors who have competed in the past, you're going to notice that they have like complete polar opposite different personalities from each other. We're all very different. And I think you can take away from that this inspiration that no matter who you are or where you come from, what your experience is, you have something important to bring to the table, both when it comes to competitive speech or even just public speaking in general. All of these former competitors who are teaching today, they've all done extremely well on the competition stage. And I think you're going to really enjoy hearing from them. The second thing, and this is on the note of bringing your personal experience to the table, and that is public speaking is perhaps the most relational form of public communication. And so I like to tell all of my students that because that's the fact, speech should always be as the shadow of one's action. When you're communicating, especially in a relational setting, people want to know how what you are saying, your topic, why that topic is important to you and how it's important to you. So that's why it's very important. That's what we're going to be doing in this session. We're going to be walking through a bunch of questions that we need to ask ourselves when we're trying to figure out a topic. And those questions are going to help us as the speaker relate to the topic so that we can bring our audience in and draw our audience in, because they're going to want to know both why it relates to them and why is it important to you. And the third and final thing before we dive in, and I think this is a really cool part of how we set up the summit. And if you're following us, you can follow some of the intensive with this, is you have an opportunity to write your speech with us as you learn. So we've structured it that we were going to start from the beginning here and finding a topic. And then by the end of the summit, you'll know how to come up with a topic, to structure your speech, and you'll know the basics of storytelling. And then if you follow us in the intensive, by the end of that intensive, you'll be able to have a whole rough draft of the speech written out. So that's really exciting. This session in particular is structured to use the chat box a lot, because what we're going to be doing is this whole session is one big exercise of finding your subject. So we're all going to practice, because I think truly to learn something, you can't just sit and watch somebody speak for 30 minutes. Plus, I just don't like speaking for 30 minutes without engaging with my audience. So that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be engaging in the chat, and we're going to be building and finding a topic and brainstorming it. So let's dive in. There are typically two different groups of students when it comes to public speaking. There's a student who is super excited to communicate something that they're already passionate about. That was typically me. And then there are, I like talking, I like engaging, I like debating. So that was fine for me. But then there's also the student that really doesn't know where to start. You know, how do I come up with a subject? How do I really find something that I'm passionate about? And the truth is, and this should be encouraging to everyone, is both students, the one who already knows exactly what they want to talk about, and the student who really has no idea where to start, they both need to start in the exact same place. One does not have an advantage over the other. In fact, if the student from group one who thinks they already have the subject they know they want to talk about just dives into writing their speech, they're missing one of the most important elements of speech building. And that's what we're going to be doing first. And in this first step, what we're going to be doing is we're going to answer 11 questions. And there's a total of 12 steps, because the last step is wrapping it all together. And these 11 questions should put both the student who kind of already knows what they want to talk about and the student who's just starting on a track to giving a speech that both relates to your audience and tells your audience why you relate to it. So this is more like a time to do an introspective exercise. So as I go through each question, if you want to answer the question in the comments, go for it. We want this to be back and forth. What I'll do as I go through each thing is I'll be working in the comments too with you, writing down some things that I would be thinking about as a 17-year-old student coming up with a speech. And at the end of this whole session, what I'll do is I'm going to wrap it up for you and show you how I built my speech by doing these exact exercise and how that works. Because you're going to be watching it and be like, oh, this is basic stuff. You know, I don't think I really need to do it. But then when I show you how it all comes together in one final speech idea and one final outline, it's all going to start to come to make sense to you. So let's go ahead and dive into step one. Step one is to sit down with a pen and paper. All these steps are with a pen and paper or on your computer, however you prefer to do it. And you're going to write down everything that you enjoy doing and why. This is like a brain dump. What you're doing is just anything that comes to your mind that you enjoy doing and then why you enjoy doing it. So hop on the chat box and start posting different things that you enjoy doing. And I will do it with you. So for example, all right, writing, reading, I see a bunch of stuff coming in. Awesome. So what I enjoy doing is I like talking about politics. I was the weird nerd who liked talking about politics. So if you're like that, type politics in the chat box. Join me in that. Then let's see, what else did I enjoy doing? I enjoyed reading history, reading about politics. I would write down all my hobbies. If I was horseback riding or football or so sports, I'll write down any sports. I enjoyed even these more theoretical concepts of being independent. I like that. So go as deep as you want to go, especially when you're just writing it for yourself. Go as deep as you want to go. That'll help you in this introspective exercise to kind of figure out what you're really passionate about. All right, so I see tons of stuff coming in. That is awesome. Thank you guys so much for engaging. Now we're going to dive into the second question. Now, so you have that written down somewhere on a piece of paper or on your document so that you can remember this first question. That is everything you enjoy doing and why. So write that down somewhere, that basic question. All right, step two. This is the second question. Write down everything you dislike doing and why. So chat box, go wild. What do you not like doing at all? Homework, chores, working. Okay, puppies and Nerf guns. I hope that question would, I hope that answer was to the first question, not the second, but to each his own. All right, so write down everything you dislike doing and why. So I don't like understanding tech and trying to figure tech out. I'm not a tech person. I'm not great with patience. I don't like having to be patient. I do not like cardio at all. I don't like being in the heat. I don't like being held back because of my age. That kind of ties into the whole being independent thing that I like. especially as 17-year-old me. Now it's not as much of a problem anymore. I have aged since then. So everything you don't like, write it down, from the very basic stuff to more like deep stuff. You don't have to share the deep stuff. That's just for your own personal exercise. All right, let's dive into step 3. Write down everything you find difficult and why. So something that you can note here is I put down reading. Like, I don't necessarily enjoy reading, but if you remember, I said I enjoy reading history. So there can be some conflict, and that's a natural thing for you to like enjoy something, even if you have to push yourself to do it. So get deep with what you're writing down here, if that works for you. And then so throw in the chat box, write down everything you find difficult and why. So masks, I don't like it either. I'm telling you, with the masks thing, like, I have never chewed more gum in my life because I don't like smelling my own breath. Like, that is just not something that's fun. All right, step 4, going into step 4, write down everything that comes easy to you and why. So for example, for me, like, I don't have a problem talking. I like talking. That's probably a weakness too. So I'll probably put that under my weakness box as well. I don't usually have a problem having an opinion. It comes easy to me. Just because it comes easy to you doesn't mean it's this amazing thing. It's usually if it comes easy to you, it's both a strength and a weakness, something you need to balance. So as you write these down, you can think of those things through. That'll help you come up with speech topics, even personal growth subject for yourself. All right, step 5, write down something that makes you angry and why. All right, anger in the chat box. What's something angry? Masks again, liberals, coffee, COVID. All right, so yeah, things that make you angry, write it down and why. So for me personally, like, I would write down different injustice issues or bullying or things like that, things that I've experienced that I'm like that makes me angry and why it makes me angry. All right, step 6, write down something that makes you happy and why. So on the flip side, what makes you angry, what makes you super happy? Chat box, go. We're doing this exercise all together. All right, so for me, I like debating, I like arguing, I like discussing things, of course, in a respectful way. I grew up in a family where my mom came from communist Poland, loved talking about political issues, and my dad was a doctor, so anything medical to talk about was on the table too. So we were just talking about, like, there was no subject that wasn't discussed growing up, and it was a fun home to be growing up in. All right, good food, something that makes me happy. Swimming, go in the chat box, write things that make you happy down. And then we'll move on to step 7. Write down something that makes you sad and why. So running makes me sad. Food that isn't very tasty makes me sad. And then you can go as deep as you want with this on your own paper or on the side as you do this exercise. All right, step 8. Write down something that makes you scared and why. What is something that scares you and why? Goes to awesome, Joe Biden. I love the chat. I love when we're all engaging together. This is so much fun. And that's what speech is. Speech should be this fun exercise. Get together as a family and do this all together. You'll learn about each other just as a family exercise, and you'll be able to come up with great subjects that you can communicate to other people and relate to other people with. All right, we did step 8, what makes you scared and why. Step 9, what is your biggest failure and why do you see it that way? Of course, some of these are personal. You don't have to type those in the chat box, but for yourself, as you think through these questions, what do you see as your biggest failure? Sometimes they're really funny. 17-year-old me, my biggest failure at that point was a pretty funny story. So I accidentally shot my granny's plasma screen TV. I was like this 12-year-old kid, and I thought I knew everything, tying into wanting to be independent. And I said, I can clean your guns, Granny. So she gave me a gun, and oops, we were watching a Western, and during a gunfight, the TV went dead and she couldn't figure it out. And I knew exactly what happened, and I wouldn't say anything. So, but then eventually it came to light what happened, and I got to incorporate that story in many of my speeches, because I think sometimes personal failures are make great metaphors and analogies for even deep and complex subjects. So take things that you've messed up and use them in your personal story, because that can be a blast for your audience and yourself telling it. All right, now step 10, something dumb or funny that you did. So for me, it was the same as step 9. My biggest failure at that point, 17, shooting my grandmother's TV. I'm going to write it down as something fun or something dumb or funny I did. Some of these can repeat. There's no problem with that. That's totally fine. This is just kind of a brain dump exercise. This is finding our topic, finding something we're passionate about. All right. Step 11, this is the final question. Write down the subject you find yourself talking about the most and why. What do you talk about with your family? What do you talk about with your friends? What is the biggest subject that keeps coming up over and over and over again. And anything is a go here. Just brain dump it all down. Anything you have, put it down. This is the purpose of that exercise. Alrighty. And then what's an interesting point to start doing now in this step 11, this question of what are the things you find you talk about the most, is jump back right now all the way to question 1. And question 1 was sit down with a pen and paper and write down everything you enjoy doing and why. See what correlates between what you talk about and what you do. That's just kind of a fun little thing to do at the end, see kind of how everything connects together. All right, now step 12, we're gonna do some more connecting. Review your answers to all the previous 11 questions that we just asked ourselves. So you review those answers and you're going to write down the common trends that you see. And then you're going to boil those down to the 3 subjects or 3 things that stand out the most as you built this list of subjects you're interested in, okay? At this point, while you're doing that, let me explain something briefly. For the students who are in group 1, why was this important to do? Why was it important for students who already kind of had the topic they loved, they were interested in, to sit down and do this exercise? Because this exercise is not just about finding your subject. It's not just about the one word thing you talk about. Like, I want to talk about socialism. Great, you have a subject. What this does now is it allows you to build out tons of personal ways that you can tie yourself to that subject and explain to your audience why is this important to you as a person. So for me, I've written many speeches using this method, and I've written many speeches not using this method. And I can tell you that the speeches I wrote that I did not use this method with were way worse than the speeches that I use this method for. Why? Because I went through the mental exercise of thinking, how do I relate to this topic? Why is this topic important to me? If you skip that, it's going to be difficult. Your speech is going to feel like it's lacking something. It didn't have the full think through. Like, so if you write your speech on the way to a tournament, some people who are really good speakers, they can do well, they can do okay. But at the end, the speeches that really impact people and impact the world around you are the speeches that tie to your personal experience and speeches that show that you went through the mental exercise of trying to understand why this subject is passionate and important to you. All right, so those are our 12 steps. This is where I start with every time I write a speech, or I should start with every time I write a speech. I've tried to say, oh, maybe I'm good enough to not do it anymore. But no, you got to do this every time, no matter how advanced you are, because this will really help you boil down why the speech is important to you and how you can relate it to your audience. So in this exercise, introspection was the key. We're trying to look inside. Why is it important to us? You'll see those common trends as you answer these life's questions, and that's kind of how you format your speech. All right. So now let's take the next step. So you've brain dumped all this information of what's subjects that are important to you, passions that are important to you. And now you're trying to think through, how do I take this wide swath of information and turn it into a topic? So here are 3 questions that you need to answer for yourself as you go forward and select your final topic, your final kind of thesis. What is the one sentence I want of what I'm trying to convince my audience to do? So as you're boiling that down, here are the 3 questions to keep in mind. First question, do you love this topic? If the answer is no, then you shouldn't be talking about the subject, because you don't have to like the thing you have to do at the end of your speech, because a lot of times it's a hard, like if you're persuading somebody to do something that's difficult, whether it's working out to even something way deeper, you don't have to like the end, the end challenge. But what you do have to do is appreciate the process. So if you love the subject, do you love what you're trying to convince other people to do? That's the question here. So first group, go ahead and check your answers to the 12 steps we talked about, and pick the things that you love the most. You love talking about the most, you love doing the most, you enjoy the most. So pick the subject there. And then now we're going to ask these questions. So this question, we're going to go back into the chat box and we are going to engage there. Does this topic provide value to your audience? Who is my audience? So for those of you who are just like guessing off of the top of your head, if you're going to a competition, what is probably the age of the audience judging you? What is that age range going to be? Pop into the chat box. Parents, great. Elders, awesome. Homeschool moms, parents, adults, great. 6 to 80. Well, you're not inaccurate. At 30 to 50 years old, perfect. So that's the first question we're going to ask. Who's our age of our audience? And you're going to do this for every audience you go to, whether it's a TED Talk, whether you're teaching at a school, wherever it's going to be, you're going to think through these questions. Second, what is the type of culture my audience is coming from? So go ahead, NCFCA culture. What would you guess that would be? You don't have to be in the NCFCA, just take wild guesses. Intellectual, conservative, good. Christian homeschool, good. Good. All cultures, good. Somebody knows we have people coming from all different walks of life to judge so that we can impact those judges too. Good. Yeah. So we got people from all different walks of life in the culture, but predominantly it will probably be homeschool parents. All right. Religion. What religion are you most likely to be looking at? These are questions you should ask yourself, because if you think about it, if you're speaking to a Christian audience, you probably don't need to explain yourself as much of why you're a Christian than if you were talking to a non-Christian audience. So these are important questions to ask yourself as you go forward. Who is my audience, and how can I shape my speech to best communicate what's important to me to them? Great. All right. Environment. What are some just general environment notes we can put on? What's the environment of NCFCA? Any ideas? Professional. There we go. Friendly. There you go. College campus environment. Good job. Church environment. Safe place environment. Competitive environment. Yes, that's true. All of those are really great. So these are questions you want to ask yourself as you develop your speech, both when you're going into competition and when you're giving a speech anywhere. All right. So now let's dive into the question, how is my topic relevant to them? All right. So this is now, as you've come down to your final top three subjects that you're really interested in, you're boiling it down to the one thing you want to talk about. Why is this topic relevant to them? Why is it important to them? So for example, if you're talking about a really deep subject, you're talking about depression among youth, then if most of your judges are parents or older people, most likely you're going to be talking about how can they impact somebody who's younger and help people walk through difficult times. So think about that as you're writing notes here. How does your topic relate to the specific audience you're speaking to? All right, third and final question. Will this topic require and generate growth? This is one of the most important questions when I'm writing a speech. And I'm thinking about this question in two ways. I'm thinking, how will this topic require and generate growth in my audience? And then most importantly, how will this topic require and generate growth in me? Because if it's not important to you, if it's not something you're applying in your own life, then it's probably not something you should be talking about. It's like I said at the very beginning of this thing, your speech should always be as the shadow of your action. You got to walk the talk. And that's probably one of the most important things about public speaking is backing up what you say with your actions. So think that through. How will this topic encourage you to grow? How will this topic encourage your audience to grow? So some questions you can ask yourself. Does your subject require you to overcome something that you wrote down as difficult to you? Remember when we were doing our 12 steps and you wrote something down, what are some difficult things to me? Does it help you overcome some of those things? Does your subject challenge you? Is it challenging to you? Does your subject allow you to tell a good story? You know, good stories, and I know Natalia is going to get into this in her session later on in the intensive. What makes a really good story and a good storyteller? So think about that as you go forward. Okay, so that is 3 questions. So to review those 3 questions really fast. First, do you love this topic? Second, does the topic provide value to my audience? And that's where I think about who my audience is and how is my topic relevant to them. And then finally, will this topic require and generate growth both in my audience and myself? All right, so we're now getting into the end phases of thinking about and coming up with a topic. Now we kind of know what subject we want to deal with. So for example, if it's me, 17-year-old me, I'm at the point where I think I want to talk about socialism and how it relates to the American economy and the American culture. That's the speech I wrote. So I'm going to start researching that. And the first kind of research we start with, it's not hop on your computer and research everything you can and read books on socialism. That's all great, and you should do that. But the first step that I want to do at this point is I want to do this more passive research. And again, we're going super broad all over again. So I'm writing down a list of all my favorite books. I'm writing down a list of family experiences. And let's do this in the chat box. Put your favorite books in the chat box as we go. Favorite books, Bible, Wave, Hobbit, Way of Kings. Great. All right. Type up your favorite books in the chat box. All right. Family experiences. Any family experiences that you can remember that were really impactful to you. So plug them into the chat box. Anything that was a family experience that was meaningful to you. I'm going to write that down. Again, remember, I am not even writing anything down that's specific to my topic. I'm again going back into the super broad phase, and I'm going to explain why in a little bit. Don't worry, I'll wrap it up. Life lessons, any life lessons you have, plug that into the chat box. Think about it, write it down yourself, but write these things down. Favorite school subjects. What is your favorite thing to study? It doesn't just have to be in school. It's just something you read, something you study, something you're really interested in. Favorite role models. Write that down. I know for me, I would always write down, but when I'm at this point, I would write down my grandfather, Polish war hero, and an amazing dude with a crazy story. And I would tie that into as many speeches as I could because it was really impactful to me. And if it's impactful to me, your audience is going to realize that too. And your audience is going to connect to what you're saying better. So I would write that down. Areas of passion. What are some things you're really passionate about, whether it's subjects? We kind of did this a little bit in our first 12 steps, but we're going to do it again now in case I missed something. And then finally, you're going to write it down. Even if you don't think all of these things, even if you don't think it directly applies to what you're talking about, you're still going to write all of this down because it's extremely important. And I'm going to tell you why I'm going to show you how I put together my speech at the end so you know. All right, so after we answer all those broad questions again, now we're going to go topic specific. Here's the point where we go topic specific. All right, so everyone have a topic in your head. If you've been following along with us, what's some topic you're really interested right now that you're thinking about you might want to speech on? Plug it into the chat box. I see end abortion, mental toughness, memes, zodiac signs, beekeeping. There we go. All amazing subjects. Perfect. Thank y'all. That looks great. All right, so take that, have it in your head. Now we're going to go through this exercise. So feel free to plug it into the chat box as you go and as I explain how the topic became interested to me. Now, I'm going to tell you what topic I wrote about before I do this exercise. This is our final brain dump. So my topic is socialism and how it relates to the American culture, the American economy. That's how broad I am at this point. I don't know exactly what I'm going to say, but I'm going to start answering these questions. First question, when did you first become interested in this topic? So go ahead, try it in the chat box, and I'll tell you how I did. So if I'm talking about socialism, tying back to my family history, my mom escaped communism in Poland, came to the United States, thinks it's the best country in the world because of the freedoms we experience. So I have this personal relationship growing up to this idea of free market economy, capitalism, freedom. So I'm going to write that down as when I got first interested in the subject of, socialism and the dangers of socialism. As long as I can remember. Great job. Everybody in the comments, great job. All right. And then, was there a particular life experience that changed your perspective? So for some people, they just grew up from the moment they were born being passionate about this subject, or as soon as they could understand what it was. For other people, there was a major life experience that changed your perspective. In this particular case, besides family history, there wasn't this major thing that happened to me. So I'm going to just probably recap what I said to the first question. The life experience is more like the heritage. All right. So go ahead and type in the chat box any particular life experience that made you excited about this particular subject. All right, then what I'm going to do, my next step, is I'm going to explain my view on this topic in one sentence. This is challenging. Everybody go for it. Try it in the chat box. Explain what you want to talk about in one sentence. Don't have a topic. That's fine if you don't have a topic yet. This exercise is just to be thinking about it and brain dumping on general subjects. As you go and as you keep repeating this exercise, it'll come. Don't worry about that. You can even do this exercise with your friends and your family to help you come up with one. So if you don't have one yet, don't worry about it. Sometimes it would take me months of doing this to come up with a topic that I really liked. So don't stress out if you don't have one. Also, if you have any specific questions regarding anything I'm talking about, there's too much popping up in chat for me to see. So go and click on that Q&A button down here at the bottom and type in your question there if you got a specific question for me, because after I'm done with this in just a few minutes here, actually, we're going to go ahead and do lots of question and answer. So any question you possibly have, you want to even brainstorm a subject real fast, we can even do that. Like, it doesn't matter. Go ahead and plug it into Q&A. That's the time for us to chat together on specific questions. All right, great job in the chat box. All right, so you got your thing in one sentence. Now, let me see, I think I lost my place. Okay, if you had to choose one word to express your thoughts. So now you're taking it from a sentence into one word. what would that be? So this isn't necessarily telling about your topic. This is about expressing your thoughts on the subject. All right, great job in the chat box. Awesome, awesome. All right, now we're gonna go, what top 3 most interesting facts do you know about this subject? So this is off the top of your head. Try to rack your brain without looking it up on the internet, because we're doing a deep dive here. We're not trying to spend tons of time researching. We're just trying to rack our own heads right here, sitting with a piece of paper in front of us, and decide what's 3 interesting facts that we know about the subject right now. So for me, writing a speech on socialism, I'm going to think back, oh, I heard this interesting talk on something called the Fabian window. And it was this stained glass window that was designed to illustrate the ideas behind socialism. So I'm like, ooh, that would be cool. Maybe I'm going to talk about that in socialism. So that's one thing I might write down. So go ahead and throw what your ideas in the chat box. You can write 1, you can write 3, whatever you think of off the top of your head. All right. And then I'm going to ask the next question. What should people do more of with regards to this topic? What should people do more of with regards to this topic? So if you're thinking, all right, I'm talking to an audience and I'm trying to get them to do something, what is that thing I want them to do? Is it read? Is it join a group? Is it work out? Whatever it is, what is that thing? Awesome job in the chat box. Y'all have crazy great ideas. Crazy great idea. Awesome job. All right. So let's go ahead with the next question. What should people do less of with regards to this topic? All right. This is an interesting question. This part especially, it's all in a curriculum, our NCFCA curriculum. So you can take it and follow that NCFCA curriculum, and that'll help you write your speech too. That's a great resource if you want to be able to write a speech. And you can write all sorts of different kinds of speeches using that curriculum. So if you want to learn, that curriculum is a great way to do so. We'll walk you step by step, kind of like what we're doing here. All right, what should people do less of regarding this topic? Next question, what is the biggest change that needs to happen in relation to this particular topic? The biggest change. What needs to change in the world, people? Chat box, let's go. What was number 5? All right, let me get here. Number 5 was, what top 3 most interesting facts do you know about this topic? So let me review it real fast. Number 1, when did you first become interested in this topic? Number 2, was there a particular life experience that changed your perspective? Number 3, explain your view on this topic in 1 sentence. Number 4, if you had to choose 1 word to express your thoughts, what would that be? Number 5, what would the top 3 most interesting facts you know about this subject be? Number 6, what should people do more of? Number 7, what should people do less of? And now we're jumping to number 8. What is the biggest change that needs to happen in relation to this subject? That's what we're on now. So biggest change that needs to happen. People are saying it in the chat box. Awesome job. And then finally, what is 1 little known fact about this subject? What do people not know that I know about this? Now, of course, someone's going to know what you know, but what is something that you probably know that other people don't? Give it a try. The truth. All right. There we go. Great job in the chat box. Okay. All right, little known fact. Now we're going to ask the next question. What is 1 misconception people have related to this topic? What is something they don't quite get or they got wrong regarding this topic that you can help them figure out? So think about that. Type it in the chat box if you can. Again, what is 1 misconception people have about this topic? And then we'll jump to the next one because we want to get to those question and answers. How is this topic relevant to our culture today? Think about that. Why is it important to where we are all right now? So type that in the chat box. Why is your topic important to us? Put what your topic is and why it's important real fast. Let's try that. Great job. All right, and then finally, what do you not know about this topic? This is a question for you to do. What is something you need to research about this topic? What do you not know about it? So go ahead and throw in the chat box or on your own personal notepad or computer. What is something you don't know about this topic? Write this down because that's something you're going to go research. And then what do you want to learn about this topic? That's kind of a follow-up to the last question. What do you not know? That'll show you what you need to learn about it. And then finally, what does this topic inspire you to do? This is the action step. All right, this is an important part. What are you inspired to do when you think about this topic? Go in the chat box. Not like cats. All right, let's see. Great job. Study. Act out virtues. Write books. Awesome. Man, y'all are going to change the world. Look at this. You're doing some crazy stuff. Great job. No, that's super promising to see a bunch of young people that are super excited to learn how to communicate and then change the world through their ability to do so. All right, so now we're going to wrap it all up together real fast. So I am thinking now, at this point, I have come up with a subject. I want to talk about socialism. I think I want to talk about the Fabian window too. I have a bunch of dumb stories. I have a bunch of fun stories. I have a bunch of weaknesses and failures. I've written them all out. Now, how does that all come together in one speech? So at this point, this is not an outline because we're not out an outline yet, but I have a general idea of what I'd like to talk about. I want to talk about socialism and how it's harming the American culture is a very generic term. I want to use the Fabian window to describe what socialism is. So then I'm going to take it from there. Is like, how do I intro this speech? I'm thinking like, how do I engage my audience? Why is it important to me? I can say, well, socialism is really man trying to take the world into his own hands without a Christian moral standard and change the world with that, like by their own strength. I know that's something I struggle with as a person. You know, I have trouble wanting to be able to do things myself and be independent and not have to rely on anybody else. And so I can relate to that on a personal level. And then I have a personal example of that failure, you know, me trying to take something into my own hands that a 12-year-old me was not ready for, and then paying the consequences of that, shooting my granny's plasma screen TV. So I might start with that story, telling that, and then tie it into my theme, which is the hands of man. When they try to take the world into their own hands, they're going to mess things up. And I'm going to write that speech as I go, but this is my start. I now kind of know what I want to talk about. I know what I'm interested in, and I'm going to go from there. So that is generally where I'm at right now. And at this point now, I think we can go ahead and open up to some questions and answers. So any questions and answers you have, throw it in the chat box. This is exciting. I see a bunch popping up in there, so this will be great.
That's great. Thank you, Zach. For those of you who are joining us, if you do have questions, you can type those into the question and answer box and we'll ask them live on screen for you. So Zach, we're going to jump right in here. William asks, when did you become interested in speech and debate? And a follow-up question there, did you like it right from the beginning?
Okay, great question. So I always like talking and arguing and debating. So I lean toward communicating passionately from a very young age, I guess we could say. So my parents thought, well, if he's going to be talking all the time, we might as well get him to talk well. So they sent me off to a speech camp to learn communication skills, and I really enjoyed it. It was a debate camp, actually. And so I went to the debate camp. I started there, and then I came back, and the church that we were at that time, they had certain competitors competing in NCFCA. So they connected me with NCFCA, and I started competing there. I never really put up a fuss about it. I enjoyed it from the beginning. I'm an extroverted person. I like engaging with people. I like talking. So for me, it was great. For my brother, he was dragged screaming, crying into it the first time. Not crying, but he did not like it when he started. And he was great. He won competitions. He was an amazing debater. He was an amazing speaker. It's just people start from, you know, different places and you'll catch on. You know, it's about giving everything you can to it, trying to take something away from it too. So yeah, I mean, my wife was the same place. She didn't want to start. And then I met my wife in NCFC speech and debate. So I'm glad she did.
So extra benefit from joining the NCFC. That's great.
Yeah, extra benefit.
Sarah asks, tell us about your favorite speech. Why were you passionate about your topic?
My favorite speech, oh goodness. My favorite speech event actually was probably impromptu speaking, because I like the challenge with impromptu speaking. You're given a topic, you've got 2 minutes to prep, and then you have to get up and give a 5-minute speech on that subject. That was a fascinating concept to me when I first got started, and I did terrible my first year and first few tournaments, but you catch on pretty quick because you realize, just like you prep a normal speech, you even prep your impromptu speeches. You sit down, you write down, do the same thing we did here to start your impromptu notebook. You write down everything that's interesting to you, all personal stories that are cool, and then you just collect them together in 2 minutes and give them because you already have them in the back of your head. So, but that was the most like back and forth. It changed every time speech, so I was interested in that.
That's great. So let's just talk about topics themselves for a little bit.
Mhm.
How political is too political?
I mean, how does it relate to you? I think that's the question you need to ask. If it relates to you, then it's not too political.
Mhm.
And if it relates to you, it's going to relate to your audience because it's important to you. You can answer, if you can answer the question, why is this subject important to me? And why am I passionate about it? It's not too political.
Okay, great. How do I make my speech a speech and less of a dramatic performance or a monologue? So I always have the intent of writing a speech, but it always seems really shallow and more like of a performance than a way to connect. How do you balance those two?
That is an interesting question. Again, I think it's doing the exercises we just did of answering those questions. Why do you love this speech? And then, like, even when I give my speech on socialism, I'm tying in my personal failures. I'm laughing with my audience. I'm joking with my audience. They're laughing with me. I'm going through and talking about something that's important to me. And guess what? Some people aren't going to agree with what you say, and that's fine. And some people are going to love what you say. I can tell you, like, for example, I won the national championship with that speech. And in my final round, I got several first places and several fifth and below places. But together, I still did better overall than anyone else. It's no matter what your speech is, even if it wins, you may get people who just don't like it. It's just communication.
Zach, we had a lot of folks who really loved your questions and all the great responses that those generated. So just to let everyone know, you will receive a recording of this call. And with that recording, we're going to send all of those questions together in a handout so you can be sure that you will have them. So I love this question.
Do you mind if I dive in? This one popped up on the chat real fast, so I thought it was a really good follow-up. The question is, what if the topic of the speech isn't relevant to the audience? I thought that's an interesting question because I don't think there is a topic that isn't relevant to the audience because it's your job to communicate how it is as a speaker. When you walk into a speech, sometimes you're never going to know what they're going to talk about, the speaker. But the speaker should do a good job of communicating why it should be important to you. They're good speakers. It can be a topic that 99% of people don't care about, but you can convince them to do that.
That's great. So we have a question here that says, if you want to have lightness and levity to your speech, how do you get your judges to care? So I do know we have some great sessions coming up that are going to specifically address humor and dramatic, heartfelt stories. So Zach, how would you do that if you want to have a lightness and levity to your speech? How do you get your judges to care?
Care, I'm interested about the question. You mean care about the general topic or care about your humor?
Yes, so we have the impact section on the ballot, which is talking about how it's got to impact the audience. So it's balancing humor, but then still trying to have an impact. How do you balance those two things?
Okay, balancing humor with an impact. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like when I talk about socialism, I may intro with let me just put it this way. I like to get my judges to laugh and cry in the same speech. That's what I like to do. Not because I'm just trying to like pull one over on them and elicit a bunch of emotions from them for no reason. And no, that's just a sign to me that I'm doing a good job communicating because I'm able to elicit some sort of emotion. They are connecting with what I'm saying. So if you get emotion from your judges, you know they're connecting. Some people, they're like feeling the emotion, but they're gonna sit like that your entire speech. That's okay. Like, you don't take that personally. Some people are just less expressive. And then there's a lot of them, you'll look at your ballot, this probably hated my speech, and they give you first place. It's like,
right.
No, not that matters, but some people are just less expressive. You're trying to get that emotion from them, and that's kind of a sign. You're reading their faces. The eye contact's important. That's why I say it's the most relational form of public communication, public speaking, because you're watching that.
We have a whole series of questions here, Zach, that are talking about possibly controversial topics. So how do we raise an issue without making people angry? And then along with that, how do you talk about politics with someone who doesn't agree with your views?
Very nicely, very kindly, very courteously. When you're talking about it, like I said, you're always going to make somebody angry if you stick on one side of something. I mean, there's just no way not to offend certain people about certain things. But what you want to try to do is, as much as possible, communicate with this trying to understand where they're coming from and answer their underlying questions of why they don't like what you necessarily believe in. So if you're answering that, more of the question behind their psychology of why they believe what they believe, if you're getting at that, then at least they're going to respect you because you're giving a major attempt to answer their underlying question that they might even not be asking out loud, but you're thinking that through. So that's more of a deep dive into, you really have to think through, why does this person not disagree with me.
It's fantastic. Okay, so we have several questions that are about how to find a good way to end your speech, how to turn all of this brainstorming into a speech. So I want to encourage all of you, that is the purpose for this summit. And then our second event, the intensive, where we are going to dive deeper into those subjects. So please, please, please come back and visit us. Zach, we're going to finish up with this question and then bring Natalia on to do some awesome giveaways. So how are you using your communication skills now that you are no longer in the league?
Right, no longer in the league. Well, I can tell you for me personally, like right now I'm creating videos on personality and personal development, which I've been doing now for a couple years. Natalia, my wife, she's in marketing. So she's using her communication skills like crazy. Cody Didon, a speaker you're going to hear from in a couple days, he's in videography. We're all using the skills we learned in public speaking in our careers. I mean, my dad, he says he wished he competed in speech and debate, and he's a doctor. My mom's an engineer, and she says she wished she competed in speech and debate. So really, they all see ways in which communication skills can be extraordinarily valuable, whether it's just workplace environment and impacting your workplace environment, to being able to sell a product, to be able to, impact people with your product.
That's great. Thank you so much, Zach. Well, Natalia is going to join us. Natalia is our Director of Marketing, and it just so happens she is Zach's wife. So welcome, Natalia.
Good morning. It's so great to be here. I know I've been excited to see over 500 people joining us. So thank you all for spending time with us on this Monday morning. We have some great giveaways for you provided by our sponsors. But first, I want to just tell you a little bit about a special free shipping code that we're offering this week of the online summit. If you follow this link here, ncfca.org/resources/curriculum, you will be able to find the NCFCA Comprehensive Guide to Speech that Zach referenced during his presentation. So some of the great questions and worksheets that he addressed are there in the printed curriculum, and you can get free shipping using the code SHIP-NCFCA20 if you order this week. So we encourage you to check that out. Additionally, our pre-season affiliation discount is running. It will end July 31st. You can take advantage of it now and save $50 off the regular affiliation pricing. You may have questions. What does that mean to affiliate? And we'll be answering those questions throughout the online summit, but essentially there are many benefits provided to you through affiliation, including the opportunity to compete in local competitions. And we're gonna have the opportunity for online competitions this year as well. So definitely take advantage of that opportunity. Now for the giveaways, we have 10 giveaway baskets provided by our sponsors, Grand Canyon University. And what I will ask is that when I announce the name of each giveaway winner, if your name has been called, please send a chat directly to the panelists with your name and the email address best to communicate with you, and we'll follow up after the session so that you can claim your prize. But our winners for the giveaway are, first, Abigail Parker. Abigail Parker, if you could send us your email, we'll make sure you get your gift. Our second winner is the Baxter family. The Baxter family. Third giveaway winner, Debbie Christie. Debbie Christie. Fourth, Jenny G. Jenny G. Our fifth giveaway winner is Jonathan Paul. Jonathan Paul, send us your email in the chat. Our sixth, Landon Roberts. Our seventh, Lindsay Martin. Our eighth, Pearl family. Our ninth, Tessa Johnson. And our 10th, Zion Surlan.
Great.
So send us your name and your email. We'll connect with you via email and make sure that you can claim your prize. Thank you again to Grand Canyon University for sponsoring this session and for providing giveaways for our audience. With that, Amy Joy, I'm going to turn it back over to you. Thank you all for joining us today.
Thanks so much, Natalia. So we hope that you enjoyed this very first session of our online summit, my apologies. And I do want to invite you back at 1 p.m. Central Time when our good friend Andrew Pudawa from the Institute for Excellence in Writing will share how you can organize this great content and brainstorming that you've started on for maximum clarity and impact. And then Come back at 3 p.m. Central Time, and alumnus Paige Sensman will be sharing about how you can engage your audience through effective storytelling. So you're going to learn practical tools to increase your effectiveness through storytelling. Again, we thank you for joining us here today. If you do have any technical issues, please contact summittech@ncfca.org, and we'll help you work through those. One thing I do want to just point out for those of you who are using Zoom, if you did not download the app onto your computer or your phone, that may be one reason why you are limited with your chat feature. So you might want to check that out before the next session, and if you need help with that, you can contact Summit Tech. Again, thanks for being here, and we'll see you back at 1 o'clock.